And yeah, we've got some questions that we will go through at the end, but welcome. I'm Penny. This is Brianne. And yeah, we're going to be talking today about managing ADHD naturally. It's ADHD Awareness Month. So yeah, we wanted to just bring some attention to it. And I know a lot of people have different, kind of struggles. With ADHD, it presents itself different in everyone. But yeah, we wanted to share this. I'm not gonna I can see more people joining, so I won't start again, but just everyone join in, welcoming you. We're gonna get started, and then again, if you have any questions, feel free to write in the chat box, but we'll answer them at the end. So enjoy, and I'll hand over to you, Brianne.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm excited to talk about this. I think it's not talked about enough. And people need to know that there are options and there are things that you can do naturally to support ADHD or any kind of behavioral or mood issues that you might be experiencing. So let me just hold on, get this there. There. So what it is that all disease, anything that you're experiencing, or I like to call it dis-ease, because that's truly what it is an invitation to deepen your understanding of self, right? So I think that's really important for everyone to remember that this is a journey and that it's open, right? You're going to just learn more and more about what your body needs and how to take care of yourself. So just to remember, this webinar is not medical advice and is educational purposes only. Please consult a qualified healthcare practitioner before making any changes to your current healthcare regime. So in this presentation, we're going to be discussing root causes of why ADHD and behavior or mood disorders manifest. A lot of people don't, think it's genetic, and that's not always the case. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to determine root cause. So functional lab testing, epigenetics, medical history. There's also a checklist of what should be investigated when determining what I call the offenders, which are causing the ADHD or the imbalances. We're going to discuss the essential nutrients that are going to encourage stability, focus, and calm, how to manage anxiety while on medication, and then some lifestyle choices for managing ADHD. So these are probably things that you might not have heard about before, and that would be root cause. So some of the root cause issues behind behavioral disorders would be genetic mutations. These are also known as SNPs, SNPs, they're called. And some of the ones that are popular and have to do with brain, cognitive functioning would be like COMT, MAOA, ACAT, and MTHFR. And MTHFR is probably the most popular that we've seen. So how about problems with methylation? It's another thing that people have maybe heard about when associated with MTHFR, but methylation is very much a cause of behavioral disorders. Leaky gut, we've all been hearing that a lot, how leaky gut can be a problem. Toxins and or heavy metals, that being a burden on the body and how that can be a root cause of cognitive dysfunction. Of course, chronic stress, which leads to inflammation. Low-grade chronic infections like Mycoplasma, Candida albicans, which is a yeast, but in the fungal family. Staph infections, C. diff, which is a bacterial infection, and then Lyme and its co-infections. We also see people with nutritional deficiencies, and of course, unhealed trauma. That's something we always have to look at. So I'm going to go a little bit into this, but if it's over your head, don't worry. We're just going to give a brief overview on all those root cause things that I just discussed. So why it's important to understand this is that these genetic components all play a role in our neurotransmitter functioning. So for example, COMT, that has to do with dopamine and norepinephrine. It also has to do when we have an excess or a depletion of B vitamins. So you can imagine how that can affect brain functioning. And just so you understand is that we do have these, SNPs stands for single nucleotide polymorphisms. So we can have one of these showing up in our genetics. And unfortunately, when you do your 23andMe or you do your ancestry, it's not going to show up there. You're going to have to take your raw data from whatever, from 23andMe or ancestry, and then put it through a genetic genie. So there's a couple of genetic genies out there, and I really like functional genomic analysis. I think they have the best genetic genie to let you know what's going on so that this might be a problem for you. So a couple others would be the ACAT, that have to do with acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, potassium, essential, electrolyte mineral, and then also microbial imbalances. We could have a problem with the MTRR pathway that, can be affected with leaky gut lining problems, B12, mineral depletion. So when you have any of these SNPs or genetic mutations, they can start causing a problem with, methylation, energy synthesis. Maybe you're not processing vitamin D effectively, and that is a whole host of problems that causes. So doing this kind of test is really, really a great foundational roadmap to understand if one of these are affecting you. So problems in the methylation pathway, there's a lot of, this is just some science that has come out recently that's showing with autism or some of these behavioral disorders, how methylation can be affecting your behavior. So methylation is a key process that affects DNA expression and can lead to behavioral disorders, mood disorders. And these are just some headlines of science, peer-reviewed, published research that's been done on the correlation between methylation and behavior problems. So this is, topic of discussion lately is leaky gut. And I wanted to put this here because I think it's so important to understand how complex our mucosal layer is in the gut and how this is really I believe, your first brain. So if you're having behavioral problems or mood problems, most likely the culprit is your gut. There's a little in the box down in the corner, it says there are more neurons in the gut, it's over 100 million, than there are in the entire spinal cord. So most people are not aware of this. They don't understand how much this functioning of your gut plays into the functioning of your brain. We have so many nerves, neurons. It's so important that the health of this, your mucosal lining and the gut is to brain function. So what's interesting is that almost every known neurotransmitter can be found in the enteric nervous system. So you're talking about acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, glutamine, and adenosine. So many of these things that are playing into the creation of our brain function, our nervous system functioning, our cell functioning. I mean, everything is really found in the gut. So if we're having problems in the gut, then we are going to be having problems with our brain. So here is a slide that is all about neurological disorders associated with gut dysbiosis. So if you see up here, neurological disorders that are associated can be schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which we're discussing today, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, depression, Huntington's disease, anorexia, epilepsy. And there's so much more that plays into this. This is just the, the most recognizable things, but there's how anxiety plays a role, how just brain fog can play a role, fatigue. So much of this is associated with gut dysbiosis. So when I say gut dysbiosis, I want to just clarify, dysbiosis means that there is a overgrowth of bacteria, fungus, yeast in the gut. So that can lead to cell signaling problems. It can lead to inflammation. It can lead to leaky gut. And that causes like literally holes or permeations in the lining of the intestines. That's when food can escape. That's when inflammation can cause problems. And then we have immune reactions when that is happening in the gut. So most people are suffering from this. I have never had a client come to me and not have leaky gut in all of the clients I've had over the last 4 years. So because, and I want to say this, there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of them is glyphosate. So glyphosate is the key ingredient in Roundup. It is sprayed in most grains, specifically at the end of the life of the grain so that it's ready for harvesting. So you can imagine if you're not eating an organic grains, you're eating that glyphosate as it was sprayed at the end of this crop's life. So you're getting more glyphosate at that time. Glyphosate interrupts the amino acid glycine, which is so important for the tight junctions in the mucosa. So another thing that we see a lot is toxic metal overload. So patients with heavy metal overload like lead, cadmium, mercury, if you live in a city, you're going to see most likely high levels of cadmium from the catalytic converters that are giving off in the exhaust. We're also going to see levels of pesticides and organic chemicals. So what happens is that when you're already compromised, let's say, you have some leaky gut, you have some other things going on, you have some genetic mutations, you are going to be even more sensitive to toxic metals because you most likely cannot detoxify very well. So those are going to start accumulating in the body, which leads to more inflammation. Then we have more inflammation in the gut, we've got more inflammation in the brain, we're not thinking properly, we're also having more and more anxiety and more hyperactivity. So it's really important to understand if this is a part of what is affecting you. Of course, we talk about this all the time, but stress. Stress is a huge activator of inflammation. This is just an informational image here of how stress can affect the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, of course, is connected to our mood, our endocrine system. So when we are stressed, that affects every part of our hormone balance. It affects, our cell signaling. It affects so many things, our immune system. So this is another piece of what could be causing the brain inflammation. So this is one that kind of is starting to get more popular and people starting to understand, but these are like common low-grade chronic infections. So for example, mycoplasma, and if you can see at the top of the image, depression, anxiety, headache, cognitive difficulties, brain fog, sleeping problems, and on down the list are all symptoms of a mycoplasma infection. Same with Bartonella. I'm not going to show you all of them. Borrelia is the bacteria that's associated with Lyme disease. But when we have these chronic low-grade infections, they're causing a lot of inflammation, and they also give off toxins. So we've got this chronic infection, and when we change our environment or we do something new, they think that's a threat, and they give off more toxins in the body to protect themselves. So that is inflammatory in itself. Another one that is really, really big, and you've probably heard this, is called C. diff, Clostridia difficile. And as you can see, disorders that are associated with C. diff are bipolar, obsessive compulsive disorder, autism, and the spectrum disorders, chronic fatigue, depression, ADD, Tourette's, anxiety, schizophrenia. I mean, it goes on and on how a C. diff infection can be correlated with behavioral issues. And then last, I have to put in here mold. So many people that I have as my clients, they come to me and they recall a time where they were exposed to a moldy home, a moldy workplace, even a moldy car. And this causes so many psychiatric issues, specifically anxiety, depression, panic attacks, bipolar symptoms, even psychosis. I've even heard of cases where they were diagnosed with schizophrenia and they were found that they had actually a mold infection. And what mycotoxins are is the toxin that the mold gives off. So that accumulates in the body, it accumulates in the bile, and then that causes a lot of disruption in our detoxification process. So, and then, again, with children, we see a lot of ADHD with children and mold. So next is nutritional deficiencies that impair brain function. So a lot of times when we do testing, we're going to see that people being deficient in zinc, methionine, folic acid, a range of B vitamins. So niacin or niacinamide, always essential fats, especially DHA. That's really important, and it's chronically deficient in people with behavior disorders. Again, antioxidants. So the antioxidants there is like vitamin C, selenium. Chromium can become imbalanced because people are not effectively metabolizing carbohydrates. So that's a problem. SAMe, which is a methyl donor. L-carnitine is amino acid. Minerals, chronic mineral depletion is huge for people. But not only is nutritional deficiencies an issue, there's also overloads. So in the case of a very unknown disorder called pyroluria, pyroluria is actually when there's an overload of things like copper, or there is a deficiency in things like zinc. So that is something that can be looked at in functional medicine labs. So of course, trauma, I think trauma is a really important aspect if people want to heal from behavioral and mood disorders. We have to look at, and trauma is not just car accidents or, abuse or sexual abuse. It's even the small things. And this is, Dr. Amy Apigian, she says trauma is that thing that for any reason overwhelmed you. So it could be something insignificant that when you were young, you didn't even realize was traumatic for you, and it actually was, and it's still affecting you now. So this can over time manifest into our biology. It starts creating dis-ease. So if you've had panic attacks, that's a real sign that there is some trauma that has been repressed. Some symptoms of trauma-related issues would be confusion, trouble concentrating, chronic fatigue, avoidance of emotions, and lowered immunity. So what are the ways to determine if any of these that we're talking about would be a problem for you? How can we determine root cause? Well, in functional medicine, there are some great tests. Technology has come a long way. So of course, like I spoke about earlier, we can discuss, hold on, let me admit. There we go. So the testing that we can do would be genetic testing via, like I had shared earlier, the functional genomic analysis. I'm also a huge fan of Dr. Amy Yasko, Y-A-S-K-O. She's just incredible. She has helped, I would say, like tens of thousands of people with autism. She's written numerous books, and it's actually pretty easy to read. So I'm a big fan of her, and I've gotten a lot of my information from Dr. Amy Yasko, and she's got a great genetic testing component. You can test a blood test for methylation and pyrrole disorders. There is amino acid testing. That is, again, a urine test. So we can look at, there's certain ways that when you look at the amino acids, you can tell if you are a candidate for one of these other disorders and what may be affecting you. Organic acids test, that's one of my favorites that I do. That measures metabolites in the urine. So we can tell if there's a fungal overload, we can tell if there's bacterial, we can tell if there's C. diff. There's about 76 markers from the organic acids test that can tell us deficiencies. It can tell us all kinds of information about what's going on in the body. And that's a urine test, and one that I do most often with chronic people with chronic illness. Stool samples. Stool samples is going to give us a great picture of what there could be that is overgrown, that could be leading to dysbiosis. We're also going to be able to see if you have enough digestive enzymes, how diverse your microbiome is. Diversity in the microbiome is a key indicator in how you're going to be functioning, your brain functioning is going to be. Food sensitivity test, I think that's always important to look at. It's not my number one thing. I think a lot of people can just tell when they have a food sensitivity. They can tell that if they get exhausted after they eat it. They can tell if they start beginning to get brain fog after they eat. So it's not the first thing I do. Some people want that, but I would rather do like an organic acids test or something like that. But food sensitivity is always an option. I think environmental toxin exposure and a hair metals test is going to give us a lot of information about if that is something that's affecting you. A mold and mycotoxin test to see if mold is an issue. So once we get an idea as to what are the elements that are affecting you, then we can one by one start removing them in a particular way so that it's not overwhelming to the body. And of course, just a regular CBC with differential blood test, get a good thyroid, functional medicine thyroid panel to see if your thyroid is functioning properly. Most likely if you have been exposed to mold or you have environmental toxin exposure or metals, it's going to be affecting the thyroid. So essential nutrients for stability, focus, and calm. This picture right here, I took at a garden that I would go to when I did my herbal classes. This is lemon balm. Lemon balm is getting a lot of science right now about the ability to calm down the brain, helping focus. It is a class A herb, so that means that kids can take it, elderly can take it. It's so safe. It's even can be taken with women who are pregnant. So it's in the mint family. As you can tell, it looks very similar to mint. It's one of my favorites. The only time you would not take an extract, you can take like lemon balm tea or a dried herb, or you can take lemon balm dried, but as an extract, you wouldn't want to do it if you are hypothyroid. So nutrients that I love would be multivitamin. You got to have a good multivitamin. And if you have leaky gut, you are going to want to have maybe a food-based multivitamin, a fermented multivitamin, one that is closer to food or has been chelated. So I like New Chapter. I used to work for them for 8.5 years. I think that they've got great options for your multivitamin because it's fermented. I also love using like grass-fed organ meat supplements. I think a New Zealand grass-fed organ meat is a great option to get, some natural B vitamin, lots of minerals. Of course, you want to do essential fats. So there's always the acronym to remember when you're thinking of food to eat that is high in these essential fats. And it's called SMASH. SMASH stands for sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, always wild, and herring. So that just eating sardines, if you are a person that is struggling with ADHD or any kind of behavioral disorder, it's almost night and day. Within like an hour, you will notice a difference in your brain functioning when you're having the full sardine. And there are ways to make sardines where they taste good. So there are things that you can research. Minerals. Everyone this day and age is depleted in minerals. So I always suggest something like a humic fulvic acid supplement to get those minerals back in the body. So humic fulvic, that is soil plant minerals. I love Shilajit. You got to find a good company though. Make sure that you're doing some research when looking at all of this, like find good quality companies. You're not mostly going to find good quality companies at like your local drugstore. But these days, actually, they do sell some good products. Trace Minerals, there's a company called Trace Minerals Research. I use them. There's another product called Cell Food. Of course, you want to take magnesium daily. I like magnesium glycinate. Potassium, get your electrolytes. When you are detoxifying, your body is using up a ton of potassium. So you want to make sure you're getting enough potassium in your diet. And you want to be doing, there's a product called New Salt, NU salt, and that is a potassium salt. So you can just add that to your diet. And I love Real Salt. Real Salt is a great option for your salt. And that's the company, it's called Real Salt. Of course, you want to incorporate some antioxidants, CoQ10. There is a little known antioxidant called PQQ. It stands for like something like pyroquinone. That's why they call it PQQ. It's excellent for generating new mitochondria in the cells, so helping with cellular turnover, getting rid of old and dying cells and creating new cells so that they're not reacting the same to your environment. Turmeric, black cumin, resveratrol, grape seed extract. That's not grapefruit seed extract, that's grape seed extract. And I also love, for addressing the Microbiome Labs Megaspore. They've got a lot of research on their product to help with leaky gut. So I trust them because of all the research they've done. I also love a company called Ion, that's Intelligence of Nature. It's Dr. Zach Bush's company. Their gut health product is really good for healing the tight junctions in the mucosa. And then resistant starch. Resistant starch is things like green bananas, green plantains, cooked and cooled rice, beans. That is going to feed the microbiome and encourage diversity. And then here's my like herbal allies and some of my nutrients that I love for mood and focus. Of course, lemon balm. Why lemon balm works so well is that lemon balm will inhibit the neurotransmitter that breaks down GABA. It's called GABA T. So lemon balm will actually stop that from breaking down your GABA. It's pretty incredible that this, little herb can do that. I love using holy basil. Holy basil is also known as tulsi. It's a sacred herb used in India for millennia. And I love it because it's really great instead of using a benzodiazepine, something like Valium or Ativan. You could use holy basil in place of that. That's not medical advice, it's just a suggestion. But holy basil, I love the extract by New Chapter or Gaia Herbs. Those are strong extracts so that they really have a medicinal benefit. You can really feel them. And if you're in a panic attack state, I have opened holy basil, a couple holy basil in my mouth to calm my nervous system. And it works really, really effectively. Rhodiola is the same. If you want to do some research what is called anxiolytics. Anxiolytics would be like blue vervain, milky oats, hops. There's even this interesting herb called hinokiol. And that has been, people say it's equivalent to something like a benzo and chamomile. So some nutrients that I really like that helps with brain support are like amino acids. So Neuro Optimizer is a product by Jarrett, which I think works really well. It's got your phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, taurine. It just helps with brain function, cognitive function. calming, also works on supporting the liver, which is essential these days. Again, I put down there acetyl L-tyrosine supports dopamine. DLPA also supports dopamine. 5-HTP supports serotonin. However, before utilizing your own amino acid regimen, I really suggest doing some testing to see what you are actually deficient in before you play around. But that's up to you. And melatonin, a lot of people just see melatonin as being something that is only for sleep, but that couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually our body's what they call an endogenous antioxidant. So it's an antioxidant that your body makes itself. It's key for cellular regeneration. It's key for supporting the microbiome and microbiome, like the growth of your microbiome. It's great for detoxifying the brain. So when you get into deep sleep, that melatonin is responsible for helping the brain detox, and it's essential. That's essential. So here's some lifestyle choices that you can start to implement today to help with your brain function. I highly recommend if anyone is experiencing ADHD or ADD, you have to go gluten-free. Like, it's a no-brainer. It's so important. There's so much inflammation in the gluten that we have here in America, or the gluten, the wheat, and a lot of the grains we have here in America. Dairy-free. You want to go seed oil free. That means no canola oil, sunflower oil, sesame oil in things. So no seed oils. Refined cane sugar free and grain free if you have severe mood issues. You might also look into reducing oxalates. Oxalates are found in certain vegetables and nuts, most nuts. Paleo is my favorite diet. It's been great for me, but if you are having severe mood issues and ADHD, I highly recommend the GAPS diet. And these diets can get very specific based on like your medical history and what your current symptom picture is. Especially for autistic children, there's so many more. You could go salicylate free, oxalate free, phenol free. I mean, there's a lot. So work with a practitioner when getting into these things. You definitely want to do daily movement. You don't have to do crazy exercise, but just move the body, deep breathing, yoga, breath work. Just a side note, sometimes hot yoga can be too taxing and overstimulating for someone with ADHD. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend just more of a yin yoga practice, something with a long, slow flow. Morning sunshine in the eyes, reducing artificial light 2 hours before bed. Super important, because in the morning we're getting our serotonin from the light that we're getting in. So that's making serotonin. And then 2 hours before bed, we want to start letting the melatonin production ramp up. Something that a lot of people don't realize is available is binaural beats. So there's a great app on iOS called Brainwave. It's $2.99. It is a game changer. So you can choose what emotion or like what state you want to be in. For example, you can choose focus and concentration, and it will help stimulate the brainwave state of theta, which is that focused, relaxed. It might stimulate an alpha brainwave state to help you stay focused. It just depends on what you choose and what what state you want to be in. I use it all the time. You don't have to be an excellent meditator. You don't have to be meditating for 20 years to get into that theta brainwave. This binaural brainwaves will help you get there within minutes and stay there while you're doing whatever activity that is that you want to be doing. Again, finish eating about 3 hours before you go to bed. That is so key, because we need the body to focus on repair and healing, not focus on digestion while sleeping. And then if you have it in you to do cold showers, that will increase dopamine and focus and clarity. Even a hot sauna is always nice, and just to do that contrast hydrotherapy. And of course, always make sure you are having normal bowel movements, 2 per day. And if you're not, I love using lemon water, warm lemon water in the morning, and triphala. That's written down there, triphala. It's an Ayurveda. It's been used for thousands of years to help normalize the bowels. And if you have any other questions, you can contact me for further support, briannegates.com. And that's a link to a free discovery call with me. And that's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brianne.
Yeah, thank you.
And some people were sending questions in and little comments and stuff. But what I just think that, you know, if anyone was kind of, when I first started hearing all of this stuff, when I was, you know, grappling with an ADHD diagnosis, was how capable we are of making changes. It's not to say every single struggle you have, which comes under the ADHD diagnosis, will just disappear. But as you try these things, the ones that, you know, can, like, for instance, if one of you here are thinking, you know, okay, well, maybe I'll get a magnesium supplement, maybe I'll get some sunshine in the morning, you know, just picking the things that stand out to you, taking note of little things you can change. You'll see, I saw a change when I changed my diet. I felt the change within 2 weeks, massively.
Absolutely.
And it was consistent for the entire 6 months. I kept it up, and then I fell off.
Yeah, and that happens.
But, you know, I felt it almost instantly.
Absolutely. You know, I didn't share in the beginning, but this is my journey, has been healing myself of bipolar disorder, ADHD or ADD, you know, all these health issues. But my biggest concern really was how depressed I would become, or at times hyperactive and not able to focus. So not only is this everything that I've learned, but I've also applied myself. So nothing here have I not applied myself or applied with clients. So it's been my journey as well. And I'm really passionate about helping people understand that there are ways, just little, like you said, little things here and there make a big difference.
Exactly. And once you see and feel the difference, then you're motivated to try other things, because you're like, whoa, you know, that was a quick turnaround. And for anyone who has ADHD and needing a quick fix and not having that kind of, you know, long-term vision, wanting to feel things straight away, the fact that you can just commit to 2 weeks and just see how you feel and see what else you want to take on board is a great way to kind of experiment. But so someone asked about, how about the vegan diet? It's funny that you asked that. Is it Tamini? I hope I've pronounced that right, because that's what I actually did. So when I got diagnosed with ADHD, and I didn't know anything about medication, like I know a lot more now, and I've tried medication now, but at the time I was just scared of medication. I was like, what if it changes me? What if I'm never, you know, there are sides to myself that I love. Like, I don't want to just change everything.
Totally.
So I looked around, and I did 21 days to start with of no animal products. So no dairy, no meat, no eggs, no nothing, no sugar, no, and only whole grains. So fruit, veg, and whole grain, basically, for 21 days. And it took 2 weeks, and I was like, whoa. So after that, I did learn different things I could incorporate, like salmon and, you know, things like that. But it worked ridiculous wonders. And so it just goes to show that my gut plays a massive part in why I got my diagnosis. It's not just, you know, it's not just, I didn't really change many practices. I didn't really, you know, do all these other things that would help me concentrate. I just changed what I ate first.
Right. And you know, I do think doing a vegan diet in the beginning can be helpful, because it's going to help the body detox. But for a long period of time, I don't recommend, you know, my personal opinion is not doing vegan for a long period of time, because there is essential nutrients in, you want to be aware of what you're buying, like grass-fed beef. You don't want to be having factory farm meats and, meats like certain chicken that's like loaded with omega-6s that can be inflammatory. You want to be making good choices if you are going to eat meat. But you want to because of the carnitine. Number one, the carnitine is so important for so many processes in the body, getting essential B vitamins, getting essential minerals. Animal fat is, unparalleled in the type of fat that is helpful for body functioning. So in the beginning, you could do a month to even like 2 months with, not doing animal products. But after that, I would recommend incorporating it back in after you've done the big detoxing. I think it's essential because I did the vegan diet for a while, and vegan diets can be high in also oxalates, and oxalates can cause more behavioral issues. So like sweet potatoes, celery, almonds, all nuts. I was so high in nuts when I was doing vegan, and there's so much oxalates that can build up and cause some issues. So it's really about balance.
Mm. I wanted to go through some of the questions that people sent in. We've got 10 minutes and
sure.
Yeah. And again, if anyone has to go or anything, it's no worries because we'll have the recording. But some of them have actually been answered. So I might just read the question out so that, for people that do get the recording and who did send the question in, they can see where we kind of spoke about the answer. But again, somebody said that 3 years ago they went vegan and haven't experienced ADHD symptoms for 2 years. So that was just a comment. But again, it just goes to show about the gut. Also, somebody said, I didn't have ADHD as a child or a teen. So why now? And so I think linking that back to the where some people can say, no, it's not a gut thing. It's your brain, it's hereditary. If your mom's got it, you've got it. It's just, we have a different brain. It goes to show. And of course, these symptoms can be misdiagnosed with things because they're presented in the same way. Totally. And I'm not saying that it's not a neurological difference, but what we are consuming makes that change. It actually impairs our neurological function, our brain function. So yeah, it's a brain difference, or but it's not necessarily always something you're born with.
Yeah. No, and again, like some of the things I brought up was like toxin accumulation, perhaps that you lived in a moldy building, there's so many things that were in that possibilities. Maybe now for a year you were eating out at this particular restaurant, you can't control the ingredients that they are feeding you, and so you were exposed to glyphosate, arsenic. You never know what you're being exposed to, especially if you're eating out a lot. So that right there, just that choice of always eating out more frequently can be a culprit in creating leaky gut, creating, nutritional deficiencies, creating, heavy metal buildup. So those three right there can cause the behavioral issues.
Yeah. And someone also asked on behalf of their sister, basically, how can I get my sister off meds? So it's, you can't just get someone else off meds.
No.
So we'll ask from like the sister.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, we'll ask from the sister's point of view. But if so the sister, the medication makes her paranoid. And I guess that's the anxiety that when I took medication, I got a double helping of anxiety. And the thing is because I had come from a lot of trauma as well, but dealing with a lot of trauma and experienced a lot, feeling anxious was kind of something I was used to, but I didn't realize how much worse it had got when I was on medication. I just knew that everything felt worse. Even though I could concentrate and focus, and I didn't realize until I just stopped taking them for one weekend or something, and the anxiety was gone. And I was like, I forgot what it's like to be anxiety free, because even my normal anxiety was nothing compared to what I've been experiencing. So I get what she's saying about the paro, because, you can put them together. But yeah, it says they make her paro, but she likes how they make her focus. So how
Well,
how would someone come off?
let's say this was me. Like, let's say this was my situation. I liked the way that the medication made me feel because I was able to focus, but I also knew that there was some problems and there was some side effects. So what I would do for myself was I would start to almost not microdose, but take a little bit less of the medication and then incorporate some amino acids for focus, incorporate some herbs for focus, do a couple things to change my diet, have a little bit of, some cacao drink. Cacao is really great for increasing dopamine, increasing focus. So doing, you'd be surprised at how much a smaller dose can still have an effect. Where these are, these traditional doses that people are given are not necessary. I don't think necessary, because when I have done this and tapered off meds or done that, I can take a quarter of a medication and then I pair it with, a lifestyle choice, a herb or something that helps me, the binaural beats, right? And I still get the effect because that medication's there, but it's being supported by my other choices. So it's almost like you're taking that medication and making it part of the herb. You're giving it cofactors, you're giving it other things that's going to hopefully balance out the anxiety.
Yeah. And also, somebody asked if there are medications that don't cause anxiety, but I guess that links into exactly what you're saying, and I'm only reading it out because I know how that can feel, being on that, just signing up for that anxiety just because you feel like other areas are getting managed. So again, for the person who sent that question in about, do any ADHD meds not cause anxiety because mine is constant, that also links into.
I'm not a medical doctor and I wasn't trained in pharmaceuticals, although because of my background in having to take a lot of pharmaceuticals in the beginning of my life for ADD and bipolar and depression, I know some. And I have to say that because if you're nutrient deficient, if you're deficient in B vitamin, if you're deficient in minerals, deficient in amino acids, the anxiety is going to be there. And it also plays on our hypothalamus, our HPA axis, and that creates that anxiety because that's what that drug is working on that pathway. So unfortunately, I don't know of any, but I do know that there are a lot of things that can support you if you choose to stay on the medication. There are amino acids and herbs and things that can help support you. And yeah, I really love the binaurals also. So while you're working or something and you're feeling that anxiety, you can put on the binaurals to get you in a theta state. Breath work can get you in a theta state to calm that anxiety. So that's as best as I can do with pharmaceuticals.
No, that's great. And another one that I just wanted to mention, because it came up twice, was talking about Asperger's and ADHD. So someone got, I guess, is Asperger's ASD? Is it?
No, autism spectrum. So you could say
Okay, yeah.
it
So
is on the spectrum. Asperger's is on the other end of the spectrum for autism.
They're basically, it was two kind of doubtful questions. So one person had said, and we've spoken about supplements, so that's covered, but what supplements help ADHD and autism? Apparently I've got both, and in brackets it says Asperger's. So the apparently is also that kind of thing. Like I've heard it as well. I've heard, doctors telling me to consider looking at Asperger's. I was like, I've got enough labels. Let me just think of sorting myself out.
Totally.
This isn't helping. Yeah. And then someone else said, one doctor said I have Asperger's, another ADHD. Are they similar then? I didn't think so.
It's all a spectrum. It's all a spectrum of how our biology is affecting our brain. So in my opinion, and this is what I have seen in my life, in my practice, and in people that I know, and in other functional medicine practitioners working with this population, that there is always an underlying reason for the Asperger's, for the ADHD that has yet to be uncovered. And in the beginning of this, when I spoke about it could be a genetic issue, it could be a nutrient deficiency, it could be methylation, you could have a chronic infection. That, and a lot of times, we've had this since birth. Well, unfortunately, this stuff does get passed down through our mother. So if the mom had a candida infection, you will have a candida infection. If mom was exposed to mold, you are now exposed to mold. If mom had toxins, you now have those toxins. So you're starting at a deficit. And if you look, the cord blood of infants, they are looking at like 250 different synthetic chemicals in the cord blood of infants. So we are, bombarded by these toxins, which are affecting us neurologically. Mm-hmm. So there's always a root cause, in my opinion. I have seen people recover from autism, recover from all kinds of, including myself. I'm not autistic, but I've recovered from my diagnoses. So there's always a root cause and it can be figured out. You just have to have the will.
Amazing. Does anyone else have any questions before we go? I know we're coming up to the hour and this has been so helpful. So I know that the other people that couldn't make it today are going to be super appreciative. If no one has any questions, what we'll do is when we share the recording, we'll also share your contact details again, just in case. Well, actually, the recording will have that contact sheet on your last slide.
Okay, great.
So it's there and people can reach out to you if they wish to. But yeah, thank you everyone who came live. It was lovely, your input, your questions, your comments. It's all been super helpful. And yeah, I hope it's been helpful for you. And I hope it encourages you to, I hope it empowers you to kind of, know that there are changes you can make and you don't have to struggle as much as you are if you are. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, wherever in the world you are. And yeah, I'll be speaking to you soon.
Thank you. See you later.
Yeah.
Bye.